Hey everybody, it is Scruffy. I have a subject that I want to kind of put out there right now. It's over the last pandemic that we had, as we all know what that was called. I'm going to try to avoid certain keywords, as you probably already know why on YouTube. I'm calling this YouTube video the story about a man named Anthony. You know, the guy that was top guy over at NIH during the you-know-what, when Trump was first president, the first round. Okay, so here goes. This is just a rundown. Most of you know what all this is about. You know, you've done your homework, and we've heard, you know, so many things. Well, let me just start off that I did my homework in 2020. And being that I was very familiar with the medical field in the past as my so-called career, I knew where to find certain, you know, things that I needed to, where to research, okay? With that said, I don't care for Jesse Ventura, but he did an interview back in the late 90s, I believe it was, and I seen it in 2020 on YouTube. And he was interviewing a woman doctor. I don't know if she was really a doctor or not, but I believe she was. And she was telling Jesse Ventura that in the coming years that there was planned, and she got her information from a high-up woman in office, but she didn't want to name the name. So your guess is as good as mine. She wouldn't tell who it was. Anyways, this high-up woman person in office in the United States told her that they were planning on, there was going to be a culling of the herd. Now, a lot of you probably already heard this information. So I started looking into other things. I found an interesting article about Anthony Fauci back. The article was written in 2005. And I found other articles about coronavirus. Coronavirus is just a simple cold virus that's been around for eons. There was nothing magical or horrible about the virus. A lot of people have been exposed throughout the many, many, many years with this simple cold virus. But they took this cold virus and, you know, and as we know, went into that lab in China. And they did some amazing things with that virus. They took that virus and made it into a you-know-what against the masses. So this happened in the early 2000s. It was called SARS-1. And a lot of Asian people died from it. And we didn't hear too much about it because, you know, it was not newsworthy over here in the United States. Nobody paid much mind to it. But in Asia, it was very significant. But something funny about that tweaked virus was that it petered out. It didn't go anywhere. It killed a lot of people, but it didn't go anywhere, and it wasn't as virulent as they wanted it. So they went back to the drawing board, as they say, and they worked on that little sucker to make it more virulent and stronger and more effective to kill more people, to oust them, you know. So, anyways, meanwhile, little Anthony, he, according to a 2005 article, knew the antidote or the substance, if you will, that would help combat that mean tweet thing. And that was chloroquine. Back then it was called chloroquine, but they've upgraded that drug, and it's you know, it's called hydroxychloroquine. So that little Anthony knew, he knew what would help combat that virus that they created out of a simple virus. He knew. So when this virus came about, this pandemic came about in 2020, actually 2019, because he was the head of NIH, tabooed that effective combatant, right? He tabooed it, and so did CDC and also the medical community, Doctors Association, etc., right? So nobody could really, you don't give that stuff, it's going to kill you. Remember that? Well, Trump took it for 2 weeks, and he told everybody, he said, I took it for 2 weeks, it hasn't killed me. And he took it. Right? Do you remember that? Well, in 2019, of the spring of 2019, I had found through some real researchers that were looking into all of this stuff too, they found a patent for a certain vax, jab, whatever, for SARS. And they had discovered that Moderna, whatever, came up with a jab in 2019. In the spring of 2019, there was a patent for it, prior to any knowledge of this little virus sucker that was about to be released on the masses around the world to call the herd. They already had something, lined up. And I call that from Moderna and Pfizer, the bio 2. So that is pretty much the story of what we pretty much know. It's not a conspiracy theory, because a lot of that stuff is factual. You can look it up yourself. Now let me bring you to an article that I found in 2020, and it was, I think, published online 2018 or 2019. And I was shocked, really. I found this in 2020, in the winter of 2020. Hang on. This is, I had copied it from online, and it is from the Johns Hopkins website. It's called the S.P.A.R.S pandemic. And it's funny that they put 2025 to 2028, a futuristic scenario for public health risk communicators. The Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. And they named the project team, etc., etc. And they have a table of contents, a possible future in 2025, the echo chamber, the S.P.A.R.S outbreak begins, a possible cure, a potential vaccine, users beware, going viral, the grass is always greener, the voice, are you talking to me, changing horses midstream, head of the line privileges, standing in line, protesting online, don't put all your eggs in a basket, lovers and haters, and so forth. So they have a scenario of S.P.A.R.S. Isn't it funny that COVID, prior to being named COVID, was called SARS? They got the SARS-1 and the SARS-2. And we here in America and around the world completely experienced SARS-2. The first one was just the Asian countries back in the early 2000s. But it gives you a look at what their scenario is going to be. And when you read through it, you would see so many similarities to what really happened in 2020. Although it didn't come from China, it came from, guess where? Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. It was from a supposed, this is their makeup person. This is a pretend person that brought in the S.P.A.R.S. and outbreaks in Minnesota. Okay, and she had traveled to the Philippines, and that's where they believed they got it. She was in some church group in the Philippines, right? So this is their scenario. It's all make-believe, but strangely enough, look at this. I'm telling you, I saw this in 2020, and this was put out like 2018, 2019. Let's see, it says, talks about, let's see, where did I just see? Rapid diagnosis test for SPARS-CoV, CoV infection was not yet available. CDC officials could not be sure if there was, in fact, 2 cases of S.P.A.R.S. But it goes on and on. It tells you the story. Communication dilemma. Says enduring public trust. Efficacy, a possible cure. SPARS-CoV. See this? This is before we even heard of the latest pandemic. This is before. It is online if you can find. Now I got this copied a while back and put it on my computer because I knew that someday they could take it down. But you really got to check it out and read this, and you'll be like, oh, wow. Now, Johns Hopkins, yes, indeed, is a leftist-leaning medical organization. But if you can get to it, let's see, SPARS-like symptoms. Yeah, they were looking at all the possibilities with this, strangely enough, S.P.A.R.S. Isn't that something? And I read this back in 2020. And this had been already out since like 2018, 2019. So, yeah, it's, now from what I understand in the news, one of the people that worked with little Anthony has been indicted. I hope he spills the beans and tells everything and throws Anthony under the bus, because that little squirrel with some other people need to go to jail. They've killed a lot of, they've outed, outed a lot of people. They've unalived a lot of people all over the world. I hope this guy spills the beans, every single one of them. But this goes on for a little while, but, you know, if you read it, it's pretty interesting. I can't read the whole thing, obviously. I'd be here all afternoon. So, but that's how it is. You know, that's the quick story on little Anthony and this latest pandemic. But according to this scenario, they come up with the jab and blah 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 blah. See, Japan had already begun to consider foregoing vaccination in the U.S. and instead traveling to Japan to receive the new vaccine once it became available in 2027. See, they were looking into the future of this scenario. They're not going to give you a real time date, because if I was reading this in 2020 and they put this out in 2018 or 2019, and the pandemic starts in 2020, 2021, that'd make them look pretty guilty, wouldn't it? Recovery. Now look at this. Vaccine injury. This is chapter 17. This is just a scenario, okay, that they did beforehand. Now, if you look down here, while the FDA, CDC, and other agencies were busy researching possible connections between Coravax and the reported neurological side effects, their efforts were continually undermined by epidemiological analysis produced by various non-governmental individuals and groups. Who would that be? Come on, let's guess who that would be. A popular science blogger, Epigirl, for example, began posting interactive maps of the incidence of Coravax side effects in April 2027. But they get into all kinds of little, well, what if this happened, and what if, you know, that happened? Well, a lot of that stuff has come true. And acknowledging loss, chapter 18. At the request of HHS Secretary, convened a series of meetings among senior leadership of the federal health agencies to address policy and programs changes being implemented as a result of departmental review of the response to the S.P.A.R.S pandemic. Among the issues considered were the implications of growing negative public opinion regarding Coravax. See, Coravax is a made-up jab, right? But it's called something different, you know, in reality. And the government's perceived indifference to victims of the public health response to S.P.A.R.S. One senior health official argued that time and a robust medical monitoring program for jab recipients, the components of which were already in place, should be sufficient to determine whether public concern about long-term effects was, in fact, warranted. We have to wait for the data. People need to understand that fact. But it goes on. And then the aftermath. And the references. Now, if you look at this, the references, the top one dates back to 2015. The second one, Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, back to 2005. And Health Resources and Service Administration, National Job Injury Compensation Program, back to 2015. It shows you acronyms. Response scenario timeline. It gives you a timeline. Response scenario timeline continues. And so, but that is the scenario that they put on the web before anything was announced from China in 2019, in December. Interesting.